Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here. And it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point. So that I just wanted to get that out of the way first. But to answer your question, Molly, I think what stood out to me, I think what stood out to me is that Brad Stevens, he was upset. That's what stood out to me about what he termed rampant Twitter BS is the word that he used, that women were unfairly dragged into this within the Celtics organization. You could see that Brad Stevens was visibly upset about this. And I also found that to be gross and unnecessary, that folks were bringing in the names and the images of women that is just not a fact. That was purely speculation. And so to me, that is what stood out. But the Celtics as an organization could have done more, and short of doing more ahead of this yesterday, they could have owned that responsibility in this press conference. I understand that there were legal parameters that they had to operate within for everybody involved, and I appreciate the fact that they brought in outside counsel and did a thorough organization. And I think that that is something that was clearly necessary in this situation. But the fact that it was able to go on all day, the fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
First of all, let me be very clear. I don't appreciate where you're going with that. I'm not blaming anybody but Ime Udoka. He deserves, the fact of the matter is, I've said he deserved to be fired if they were going to fire him. If you're not going to fire him, then don't fire him. My issue is all of this being publicized. The point that I'm trying to make is just like you're not mentioning. Excuse me. I listened to you. You're the one telling me to stop on my show. It ain't happening. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I've already said he deserves to be fired, or he deserves to be there and handle it internally and privately. If you're not going to handle it privately, if you're going to publicize it in that fashion, then obviously it provokes everybody wanting to know, okay, well, who are the parties involved? When you have Amina Smith in Boston and other women pointing out the fact that there were women who were wrongly implicated in all of this, it's a disservice to them. I didn't come out with the report about a consensual relationship. I didn't come out with the report ahead of time leaking that they were going to suspend him for the year. They did that. And my point is, considering how pervasive this kind of stuff has existed in professional sports for many years, my whole point is that, excuse me, make sure that you handle it in the same fashion it has always been handled. You could have fired him, and then we could have speculated till the cows come home, but he's gone. But to keep him there, keep him employed, but in the same breath, suspend him for a year, then also that year is indefinite. That is the issue that I have. Nobody's trying to protect Ime Udoka, and certainly nobody is trying to protect, is to excoriate the women involved or anything like that. I'm talking about how things of this matter are usually handled from an HR perspective, from an organizational perspective. That is not consistent with what we have seen throughout the years. That is the only point that I was trying to make. I'm not trying to attack anybody. And if anybody deserves to be attacked, it's Ime Udoka for putting himself in this position. I've made that very clear. I'm just talking about you got owners and everybody else. They know the kind of stuff that's going on. You didn't say anything about anybody else. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about them. They didn't say anything about everybody else all the other times this stuff has happened. But now when it comes to him, it's all over the place. That is my issue. That is my only issue.
I appreciate that clarification. And I think that getting back to Molly's initial question, That is what stood out to me from the press conference. My reaction to the press conference, and I appreciate you clarifying that, Stephen A., is that the only thing that was made clear to me in this is that we are missing a key piece of information here. That is my reaction.
As a huge debate.
All right, some numbers real quick. Even though Tatum is knocking on the door of superstar, I'm not sure where he left that conversation, but he has had one outlier low-scoring game in every series this postseason. The good news, though, for Boston is he got that out of the way in Game 1. He scored almost 30 points per game for the playoffs in games besides his lowest-scoring game each series. But I want to circle back because everyone's ears kind of perked up when he was talking about this. Oh yeah, we missed perk. About this superstar moniker, and we've had a bunch of conversations. I'm a stickler when it comes to the superstar. I don't think that there. I think that it's like very, very rare air, and so there's a whole bunch of players that are knocking on the door of superstardom. But to me, you have to check off the box of not only your play, which I think, by the way, Jayson, that's where it comes from. That's when you started to get this sentiment. It's because you are playing, sir, like a superstar. So hats off to you. But it's butts and seats. It's casual fan appreciation. I think all of that goes into superstar, which for me is why it's like Steph, LeBron, Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Nikola Jokic knocking on that door potential. And then to me, it's like
Embiid's not a superstar?
Embiid's a superstar.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think of this? What do you think of this Jayson Tatum superstardom talk?
I agree with your phrasing and that he is knocking on the door. And a lot of times superstardom is won in moments. And so if you're able to bring the Celtics to an NBA Finals and win a championship, then people will probably say he has arrived and you are a superstar. And by the way, Jayson Tatum, JT, like this is a great compliment.
Yes.
Your play has dictated you being in the same conversation as superstars because we look to you as that next generation star by how you play. And that's why a lot of people really enjoy the comparisons also with Kobe because it feels like that legacy is alive and thriving within the NBA. I know a lot of people look into Game 2 and say, oh my goodness, if you look at the stats, he's minus 36, which by the way, I'm glad you brought out those outlier games. He's minus 36 and plus minus, which by the way is the lowest we've ever seen in the past 25 years. I saw that floating around NBA Twitter, like, don't panic so much. It's okay when
NBA Twitter equals panic.
Oh yeah, it definitely does normally mean equal panic, but like you just pointed out, like typically they're outlier games, and also he was the only Celtic player on the floor in that entire third quarter where the Warriors went on that run. So really that minus 36 is probably more like minus 15 alongside the rest of his team. And there are good things to have confidence since we're in Beantown, right? I think he was 6 for 9 from 3. His stroke is out there. The rest of the team was 9 for 28. Only 3 guys in double figures. So Ime Udoka is absolutely right. They have to share the ball. They have to get back to, finishing shots. And honestly, like, I'm not feeling bad. You split on the road, so this is not a problem.
Zach?
What are we doing here? Like, what's going on? Like, Jayson Tatum was first team All-NBA. He's the best player on the finals team. He scored 47 points against the Milwaukee Bucks on the road.
Thank you.
With their season on the line. I don't know what the rubric is for superstar. I need a spreadsheet for all your different categories. Jayson Tatum's a superstar. He's not knocking on the door. Knocking on the door? Then they're like, oh, please let me in. Jayson Tatum has the key to the door. He's a top 10 player in the NBA. He's a superstar. Done. He's in the finals, 1-1. What are we doing? What's happening here?
I'm with Zach.
Well, so here's my thing. The other thing about superstar, I'm not gonna get my.
Did you hear that, Jayson Tatum? Did you hear that?
But my other thing about it is it's the longevity. It's doing it over time. And so there are people who are superstars in moments, and then there are other players who have earned the moniker. I'm thinking of a Kevin Durant, for example, of superstar, kind of no matter what he does for the rest of his career. LeBron James, because of his play up until this point. Jayson Tatum could and will get there. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying, like, it's a complicated. I will get you the
It's not that complicated.
Okay,
it's not that complicated.
Richard and I rarely get to be on the same page like this. It's a good feeling.
Well,
I like
it was actually in my notes before our ears perked up and we started talking about this was the inconsistency of Jayson Tatum. I don't think though that superstars somehow are not allowed, or burgeoning superstars, however you want to say it, aren't allowed to have inconsistent games.
So we're talking about the Jays. By the way, I hate the nickname the Jays for them.
Really?
And like how they haven't scored 25 together in one game, and inconsistency.
Well, they actually did it in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Whatever it is, Chanae, okay? Can we just talk about what they've faced? The Bucks are the #1 defense in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
The Heat were the #4 defense in the regular season. The Warriors were the #2 defense in the regular season. Like, scoring 25 points in a game is hard. Being consistent against those teams is hard. Like, the defense, this is like the hardest basketball gets right now. That's why fewer and fewer players can get on the floor.
Right.
That's why I don't think he's inconsistent. I don't think he's inconsistent. He had an off night, and to say he's inconsistent implies that the other team wasn't responsible for that.
Right.
And great players, what they typically do is they see how they were affected. Did they shoot too much from the perimeter? Did they not attack too much? Did they get in foul trouble? What was my mentality? And so we've seen every single time he's had a subpar game for him, he has shown up because he has gotten better. So I think to say that he's inconsistent, you're not really watching the game, and you're taking away credit from the teams that have actually done a good job defending him one game out of 7, out of 6, 7 games before, 2 games here in this series. You're allowed that because just like a team can have an off night, you can figure it out and figure out how to be aggressive moving forward.
Well,